everyone, and welcome to the Doom Productions podcast, a podcast hosted by Doom Productions. I'm Jordan.
I'm Ethan. Oh. We've been so good about it. Let's do it one more time.
Yep, all right.
You go first.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Doom Productions podcast hosted by Doom Productions. I'm Jordan.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Ethan.
And today, we are here to talk about movies, as we are every single week. This is a place where you can come, sit down with us, hang out, listen to us on your commute, when you're at work, when you're on the toilet, wherever you listen to us. This is a place where you can hear us talk about movies and the movies we make. And if you weren't aware, we just released a movie called The Bell Rings. Check it out on our channel. It's out now.
For free.
For free. Mm-hmm. It was directed by Ethan, who's sitting across from me.
That's me.
Zach worked on the movie. He's sitting kind of across from me, and I'm in the movie. It'd mean a lot to us if you checked it out, because we're going to be talking about that movie today. Specifically, the inspirations behind it. Yeah. And just inspirations in general, and where we get inspirations, what inspires us, what motivates us, and all that good stuff for filmmakers to chat about. Mm-hmm. So, Ethan, what was the inspiration behind The Bell Rings?
A ton of things. So many things. Obviously, we're filmmakers, and that means we don't just output movies, we consume movies. We are cinephiles. I don't know. I saw a funny cinephile meme this week, and that's in my head. So.
Is that like a pedophile kind of joke or whatever?
No. It's this great bit where, whatever. Anyways, we like movies. Okay. And so a lot of our inspiration comes from movies. So it's kind of a mix.
Well, they know that, sir. Well, no, I'm joking. I'm just kidding.
I know.
Have you seen the Harry Styles interview at Venice?
No.
Someone's asking about the movie he made with Olivia Wilde, and he was like, "What I love about this movie is it's like a movie." He says something like he rambles about movies or something.
That's great.
Oh man.
Yeah. See, that's what I love about The Bell Rings. It's like a movie. No, but I mean, obviously we pull up inspirations from movies, but Bell Rings was kind of interesting because I tried really hard to diversify the sources of inspiration from it and what I was looking at to kind of pull ideas from. So a lot of that, the visuals especially, I tried really hard to research photography just of the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression and what did that look like. So the lenses I shot on were 35 millimeter photo film lenses as opposed to modern digital lenses. Mm-hmm. Not digital lenses, they're not digital, they're optical. But you know what I mean. Nice lenses.
Lenses made for a DSLR.
Lenses made for DSLR that have premium glass. I ditched that for some of the worst lenses I have. I actually genuinely don't like them. But I'm probably going to get rid of them actually after.
Why would you get rid of the Bell Rings lenses?
I don't. Maybe I'll keep them. I don't know.
What if you make a Bell Rings sequel or prequel?
That's a good point. Because I buy different lenses. I don't know.
Well, don't get rid of them. Give them to fans or something. Maybe we'll do a contest. You'll ship out.
Maybe.
They could own the Bell Rings lenses.
Well, it's just the camera that I have that went with them. Mm-hmm. I got that camera. I think I paid $20 total. Not even $20 for the two lenses plus the a camera.
It was a Goodwill find, right?
No, it was scrap PDX.
Oh, okay.
I got it the day before everything went into lockdown for COVID. That's when I got that stuff. Because I went there.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
The reason I went there was for a different movie we were working on.
Oh, that's right.
That was right before it was a pre-House, pre-Oh Brother.
Pre-Doom Productions.
Pre-Doom Productions. We were Caramel Shark Studios. I went there to get x-rays because we needed x-rays for a scene. And at Scrap, people have donated x-rays.
Right.
So I went there and I bought some. And I happened to find a camera and I was like, well, I can't pass this up. So I bought it too.
Yeah.
So I bought x-rays and a camera. Anyways, inspiration, going back to that. Photography, a lot of just how did they shoot people photographically, not gun-wise. How did they, what did the scene look like? What's the feel? Mm-hmm. I wanted to tap into that because I feel like most people who see these movies have had some exposure probably to that side of history and kind of has a mental image of what that looks like. So I wanted to try and replicate that as much as possible. Mm-hmm. I wanted this movie to feel old and look old and be shot in that way. So I didn't really focus on old movies as much. I did watch some and kind of get ideas, but I focused more on the photography than the movies of the time, even though I consider this movie to be shaped like a movie of the time, even though it's not. That was a very convoluted whole thing there.
I'm following with you.
Jordan made a face at me.
No, it's just
Jordan made a face of, what are you talking
my
about?
film school buff nerd in me is like, this is nothing like the movies.
No. And I don't think it totally is, even though I title it as such. I had one person actually
Gotcha.
not be happy about me titling it that way.
Really?
That's okay. One person.
Oh, okay.
But
Stay mad, haters.
stay mad.
Put it
haters.
1920s.
Yeah.
Keep bringing the decade down.
Yeah, that's what they meant. No.
1600s restored movie.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
No. But then from there, like movies that I was looking at, I mean, things like Wizard of Oz was a big one because I liked that that's kind of like an old tale.
Yeah.
It's kind of fit the vibe I was going for, because my whole, how I describe the bell rings to like you guys, the cast, or to like people who I was telling before it was written, like Caleb and Nathan, I describe it as like a Grimm's fairy tale if those stories were told during the Great Depression. So instead of the backdrop being like Germany in the 1600s, 1700s, like it's set in the modern, like in the Americas during like the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
And so that kind of was the mentality I was at. So it's like an old tale. So Wizard of Oz kind of had that feel. And I like, again, you could see that old farm life too.
Right.
So just seeing, especially that first half. The second half, not quite as much, even though there is that color that gets brought into the movie part way on
Right.
a little bit.
I remember us sitting down watching Night of the Hunter. Was that for this,
Yes.
or was that something else?
Well, that was something you were like, this is something that would be good to
Oh,
watch
yeah,
before.
yeah.
So that was your idea. And I did pull a lot from that, because some of the ways that Richard's character acted.
Was like the Robert Mitchum character.
Yeah, the preacher in Night of the Hunter.
Right.
And just some of the ways that things are blocked, or I liked some of the way that movie just was made.
Right.
I think something you pointed out was like the way the people move in the story or act, like when he's chasing the kids up the stairs, he looks like a Frankenstein's monster. And it's
Right.
like, it's not meant to be
It's not realistic.
realistic. It's like from the perspective of how a kid sees this,
Right.
where this man is being a monster, so he moves like one. And that kind of mentality, well, I think I kind of pulled into this too, of this isn't how people act. This is like how these characters, like the story perceives the characters, not so much how real humans would handle this situation. Because these are terrible people. Like throughout most of the movie, these are all the people making all the wrong decisions
Right.
all the time. Like one conversation could have fixed this whole thing. Like one heart-to-heart conversation, this whole movie could have been avoided.
Right.
That's not how it went down. And then the big boy, the Lighthouse.
Oh yeah.
We're huge fans of the Lighthouse. That movie is just so cool. A24 in a whole is awesome. But when the Lighthouse came out, I think you and I were both like absolutely like obsessed.
When I got that on Blu-ray, I literally watched it every single night for like a month. I like would come home from work. I think it was, what year did it come out? 2018?
I think it was 2019.
2019.
Are you sure? Let me look it up.
I
I could have sworn it was 2018.
If it's what I remember, I think it was winter of 2019. So I would have got the Blu-ray early 2020.
Yep,
Because
2019.
I remember it was about to go into lockdown. Because I remember there was a straight month where I would get,
What a horrible movie to watch going into
I would get home
lockdown.
from work.
Oh my gosh.
Well, this wasn't in quarantine. This was like going in right before.
Even worse. That's the mentality
like-
you're starting with.
I would like come home from work. I'd do whatever I do, but then that night at like every night at like 6 or 7 p.m. I just put on the Lighthouse and it'd just be on for like a month.
It's a good movie though.
I've learned this. I get really obsessed with movies in like a OCD
Obsessive compulsive way.
obsessive way, like where it's not even like it's not even like I talk, like I just want it on the TV to like experience it.
Yeah. And that's a movie that's just experienceable. I
Right.
don't know. Like it's not so much a narrative driven thing.
No.
It's just weird. It's
Yeah.
our kind of weird.
Yeah.
So watching that I was just like, oh man, I want to make a movie that had two people going crazy too. What's the polar opposite I
Right.
can take from this? Because if that's the ocean, I'm going to go where there's no water.
No water.
And
yeah.
so the Dust Bowl felt like the right setting. And for more context, like the bell rings is like an idea I've had for years.
Right.
But it's shifted. I think I've talked about this before. It's shifted much. It's changed a ton. There's more stories I could tell from it that are just so vastly different.
And so what was it about The Lighthouse and Wizard of Oz that made you think, oh, I want to make something like that?
Well,
what was it about those movies?
I think it was a little bit retroactive or reverse engineered, where it wasn't so much I watched those and thought, yes, I want to make that. It was, I have this movie. What things can I pull from those looking back that like fit the vibe that's in my head, and what ideas can I steal from them? So like with the Lighthouse, obviously it's like these two main characters that are stuck with each other. Well, they're not so much physically stuck with each other, like they have to, in the Lighthouse, they like have to be on this rock, on this lighthouse. Like the environment restricts them from leaving. I said, like, emotionally our characters can't leave each other.
Right.
I mean, they could if they really, really wanted to, but they don't. So that kind of bounce off. But then also like looking at some of the imagery from the Lighthouse.
The dream sequences.
The dream sequences, a lot of that, and just kind of like the droning cinematography. Like I think of, there's like this shot in the hallway towards like the end where it's just the ramp leading up to the lighthouse, like in this hall, like super rickety, and it's just nothing happens.
Doesn't
it's
it track through the hallway, right?
Just a little bit. That feeling is what I wanted the opening of my movie to be like, and so that's where you get the tree imagery where it just sits, and you just have stuck waiting, and it slowly starts to track in.
Right.
That's kind of funny because when I saw it for the first time and when you described it to me, my mind first went to Unforgiven and how that movie opens and closes.
I've never seen it.
Oh, you should.
You'd love it.
There's so many movies. I got texts from people, like when I'd be posting pictures and stills from like certain parts of the bell rings, like during production, and be like, oh my gosh, this is like this movie. And I'd look it up and I'd be like, oh, you're right. I'd never seen it.
Yeah. I remember someone mentioned a Terrence Malick in his movies.
Yes.
For you, right?
Yes. That I don't remember which Terrence Malick movie it was. It's two people sitting in a field. I know a bunch. So like what you and Mary's character did. And I looked at the cinematographer. I was like, oh yeah, that is exactly what we're shooting.
Right.
Again, I still haven't seen that movie. I really should. I wanted to fit it in and watch it at some point. It just never happened.
Well, you have seen Interstellar.
Yes.
And Interstellar kind of feels like a sci-fi Terrence Malick. So in a way, like that DNA kind of seeped in there somehow.
And there is, I did have, Interstellar was in my head, particularly the feeling of, and I didn't even get to do this as much as I originally like imagined. Like I wanted that feeling of like when they come home from like the baseball game and there's just dust, like they have to put the plates upside down in Interstellar and they're also always wiping dust off. I wish I could have incorporated that more.
Right.
It just didn't happen. I think in other ways I achieved that, so it just didn't become as important. I think particularly just the wake sleep cycle in the bell rings is where I ended up putting more of my focus in, less of like the environmental. I would have loved to have made it look dustier, though. I would have loved to have had like dust storms coming through, but it just didn't. Again, it was like an effect I wasn't getting the result I wanted from, so I left it how it was. But
So you kind of looked at your narrative first and then thought, what movie that I know and like would fit this,
or at least feeling wise. Yeah, because a lot of the narrative stuff was pretty set in, like I knew where I wanted the movie to go. We worked on it a lot, you and I, and especially in like the outlining phase. That didn't feel quite as influenced by anything more than the Lighthouse, and then just generally the ideas I had for it already. And like some of the characters, even they came in later, because originally the focus was just you, me, and Robert, the preacher. Like those were the characters. And then when Bellamy came onto the project, we offered her like, just how much do you want to be involved? And that she expressed she wanted to be very involved. And so it's like, all right, let's make a whole new character for you. So the witch came in so much later. Like really, that didn't really probably become an idea until April.
I'm trying to remember
March?
Was the witch character in the first draft that you wrote?
Yes.
She was? Okay.
Yes. But there were outlines, I think, where she wasn't.
Because I remember in discussions prior, she wasn't a huge part necessarily.
No.
Because it was really more of like a, where did this bell come from?
We both knew about the bell in
Right.
early drafts. Like, both brothers knew. And the concern wasn't so much about Mary and Robert being these two like opposing forces. The concern was just Robert and him kind of trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
Like, he was like this outsider looking in, trying to figure out why these brothers are acting the way they are, and realizing over time this bell exists.
He was a nice character too, I think.
He was
right?
nice, but he got corrupted.
Oh, okay.
Like, the bell corrupted him.
Right.
And that made him into the He was more of a Smeagol in a way. Lord of the Rings also was kind of an influence, because that's how I'd compare the characters. Is like kind of like a Smeagol-Deagle relationship early on.
Right.
But again, we just got away from that because in the end, our characters didn't both know by the end. It was really, I didn't know anything what was going on until the last couple scenes of the movie.
Right.
Where I kind of realized what's happening. Even though I don't think my character fully got a picture of what was going on.
Do you guys feel when you start a movie, and let's say the seed of the idea was kind of like, oh, this is like Wizard of Oz, Lighthouse, Lord of the Rings. When you start making the movie, do you feel like, to a certain extent, you have to keep it, like, tied to the inspiration to a certain extent? Like, for instance, if I want to make a movie about a gunslinger going on one last ride, and I'm thinking Unforgiven, right? If I go out to make the movie, would you find yourself being more like, oh, I got to make this more like Unforgiven, or would you be like, just let the story be what it's going to be, and let the film be what it's going to be like?
What do you think, Zach?
I'd say, well, at least from personal experience, I'd let the story go in the natural direction that it leads, whether it be more towards or more away. Particularly with Wild Boys, we based it on a particular movie. I don't know if we had announced it, or Wild Boys 3, we had based it on a particular movie. And it ended up being a lot less reflective of that movie and more of like, oh, here's kind of a light inspiration for kind of some of the events that take place and how things get executed. And there are a couple mentions of that movie.
And we're a bit more, we like mention that movie, I think, more than we even really are referencing it.
Yeah. Right.
Even though it's what we kind of went in thinking about.
The characters reference it, but on a film level, we don't reference it.
I don't think it would be quite as recognizable.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're being vague because the movie is...
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming soon.
Yeah, we'll be out soon.
But like that one, we had been like, oh, it'll be like this. And then as we like got past the outline and into the script and stuff, it kind of went in a different direction, but it went in a way that felt natural for the way it was going to go. And kind of similar to, like with me working on Coalescence, that one has been an interesting journey of inspirations, because there was a lot of inspirations initially when I was writing it and stuff like that. And then as we got to filming, and even while filming, I've been like, yeah, no, this isn't as much of an inspiration. Or like, this isn't really affecting the movie as much, even though like I had it in mind when I was coming up with ideas and stuff, just because of how things have been like filtered and altered a little bit.
Do you find new inspirations will replace it, or is it purely just you're thinking about the movie itself?
Normally I'm thinking about the movie itself, but if I see another movie that has something that would feel natural in that case, then I'm like, oh, that's great. And I've actually found that more after I finished the script for the first one, or for Coalescence. I found, hey, this could have sequels.
Right.
And so those sequels have very definitive, like, oh, this is based off of that movie. Like, oh, it would go like that.
Okay.
As opposed to this one's just like, oh, E.T., other things.
Right.
It's a bit of a collage.
It's more of a collage, whereas like after I finished it, when I'm looking at like, oh, if this does well, I have no clue. But if it were to, and I were to make a sequel or two, I have very definitive, like, oh, this movie will be this, and this movie will be this movie, kind of a thing.
I think the beauty is even if it doesn't do well, you can still do that.
Yeah. What about visually for Coalescence? Was there any movie in particular you were thinking of?
Ooh. Not really. I mean, I kind of liked the idea of pulling from... I liked pulling certain things from Stranger Things, which I feel like when people watch it, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is very Stranger Things-esque. But like that was just a piece of the puzzle. But then also the first Thor movie in a way. Because I like kind of the idea of particularly some of the things that I haven't shot yet that I have ideas for, particularly with like the usage of Dutch angles, or like actually I'd reference some of Sam Raimi's work actually with like kind of classic horror,
I know what
but
you're
like
talking about.
dynamic stuff. But I'm thinking particularly when, well, I don't want to spoil the movie, but particularly when a certain thing is involved, that won't be revealed until the plot twist. It's kind of like the camera is cueing in that, like, oh, this is there, or like, oh, this is happening, type of a thing.
It's
as opposed to like going from like classic shooting to like, oh, that's weird.
When you showed the preview in Yakima, I remember that when I saw the preview, the first shot, I was like, this looks like Euphoria. There's a shot in the preview that we showed in Yakima that was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting it to look like that. Which is, and not like Euphoria, like it's even like a 1-to-1 Euphoria comparison, but it just reminded me of that because that was what the
I haven't
popular.
seen Euphoria. I don't know.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen all the previews and everything, and I'm
Love
like,
their art.
I was like, that looks like Euphoria to me. But
I've seen a lot of stuff with like their usage of color, which is cool.
Right.
Yeah, it's a neat looking show. I want to watch it just because of the look of it.
And it's one of those things where I kind of like, because we've talked about this, going into Coalescence, I was like, oh, like E.T., Stranger Things. There's a lot of like, I think we kind of talked about it, like similar feeling movies and whatnot. But Euphoria was not one of them. And so when that shot popped up, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. This movie's going to be wild. This is going to be crazy.
Yeah. So something else.
Yeah, in a good way. In a good way. Like, there's even stuff. The shot, I'm going to be vague. The shot that we tried to get when we were at the place.
Oh yeah,
and
then
it went
we couldn't
really late,
get it,
and you couldn't get it then. But
and then
you
I
went
got
back
it
and
later.
You got it. Yeah, that shot that's in the preview. I was like, that also was not like how I expected it to look at all, and that looks fantastic. Like in my head I envisioned one thing, and then it turned out another way, and just in a great way.
Yeah, that's the exciting thing about being like a little bit distanced from the project and all that creative side of it a bit is like it's cool to like watch what I picture the movie being like versus what I see it. It's like, oh, that's cool. Like I like the surprise. That's just so neat because I don't get to be surprised by our projects very often sometimes. So it's like cool to see like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah,
that's what we were making. Like when I didn't read the Video Carnage script at all and shot the whole movie.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, that's what we're making. Cool.
That's what I'm looking forward to with La Danza, since I have no clue what the story is.
We've been on set a handful of times and just sort of like,
we're just like, okay, we're just. I'll hold the camera. I'll hold the tables up.
Yeah, whatever you need.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I think that's what's funny is with La Danza is like I've also been kind of vague about it, but I've like if you know like I think how I mostly describe it is it's like a movie that I've always wanted to see made, and that like I'm going like unhinged, like me in a way. Which if you know me, knows I'm going experimental and not like not like kind of pseudo experimental. Because I know a lot of filmmakers, they'll say experimental, but when they say experimental, they'll reference like a movie where it's just like a single unbroken take of just two people talking or something. Like that's to a lot of people that is experimental because that's not a movie you see very often. But I mean like
experimental.
I'm talking about like Jonas Mekas, Maya Deren, Stan Brakhage. I'm talking about like actual experimental film, or like, what's his name? Matthew Barney or Varney, or the Cremaster Cycle, stuff like that. Like the stuff that really inspired me in film school. Like it's like independent experimental cinema. Kenneth Anger as well. Like folks like that is kind of what I'm really inspired by. And that's the kind of feel that I'm going for. And so it's funny, like, because the preview, some people have seen the preview and they're like, oh, that looks great. I'm like, oh, you haven't seen the movie. You'll probably hate the movie because it sells a very different kind of movie.
Yeah.
But in a weird way, talking about inspiration, I now find myself at a weird place because now as I pieced a lot of the movie together, it is a little bit more narrative based than I thought it would be. Like there's the narrative thread is a little more traceable than I thought it would be with kind of how it was all put together.
Yeah.
So now I'm at a weird place of like, do I leave it in because this is how it was designed to be, or do I go to the true like intention behind the movie? And part of that also is too that when I make movies like this, what I like to do is collect all the footage, put it together, take it apart, put it together, rearrange, and like really mess it up. I'm also at a part where I have a lot of footage. I'm kind of doing all I can with the footage until I shoot more. The movie won't really be done edited until probably maybe a month after I'm done shooting, if that makes sense. Like the whole process that I do with these kind of movies is I need all the footage to really rearrange it.
Yeah.
Right now I only have a certain amount, so I really don't know.
Yeah.
But I still feel that dilemma of like, oh, I'm kind of seeing a narrative here.
Yeah.
Like there's this narrative that's shaping that I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep it in. I don't know if I change it. I don't know what to do. But again,
because you want like the subconscious to take over for this, right? You don't want it to be such a like literal through line. You want it to be. I mean, I'm thinking back to shorts like The Gospel or Black Coffee of ours, where those like there isn't a literal narrative. I feel like there's like an emotional thread you can follow.
Right. I want it to be experience-based and not narrative-based. I want you to watch it, and I know what I want you to feel at different moments. How I get there is going to be, it's kind of up in the air until I get all that footage. Because I know my idea of how I want to assemble it, and it's all blocked out. But things have changed, and now I'm like replanning and restructuring it a little bit. And so it is kind of like, yeah, I mean, go check out The Gospel if you haven't already, or Black Coffee, our films. It's kind of a taste of it, but yeah, it's kind of more experienced and emotional based than
it's what we're going back to really more than I feel like it's totally different. I mean, of what I've seen, it's totally different from those, but it's
right.
It's the evolution of where we were then versus where we are now.
And part of the challenge has been, can that style sustain for an hour long?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be straight up. If into editing this movie and I'm like, okay, this is what it was supposed to be. This was meant to be. But for whatever reason, I just don't feel like it's working as like an hour-long thing. Because those other pieces are very short. And
this is 5 minutes. Yeah.
This is like, I know it's going to be a shorter feature for me. I know it's not going to be 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't think the style can sustain 90 minutes. I'm going to try, fingers crossed, for an hour. If I can get it to an hour and it just works, that's great. I'm happy. But if I get it that long and it's not working, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of stuck because then it's like, gee, now I got to piece together a narrative, and it's like it wasn't designed that way. And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm being vague, but I think that gets the idea across.
We'll help you out when you get to that.
Yeah,
point.
I mean,
we'll
you guys will be involved with the editing process of like screening different cuts and giving reactions and all that.
Oh, it's gonna be so cool.
That's why I don't want you to watch any of it until like it's all assembled. Because if you just watch a little piece here, a little piece there, you might get ideas. No shit. Like I want you to experience it as it's supposed to be experienced. But
can't wait.
Yeah, we'll turn off the lights. Just take off all our clothes. We'll turn up the heat. We'll just press play on Ladonza.
Yeah.
The way movies were meant to be.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is for all of us.
Right. Okay.
This is kind of going way back, like to basics. Mm-hmm. When you get inspired, do you have a thing that usually happens first? So like I'm talking like when you have the first mustard seed of an idea for a movie, is it usually the same thing that happens? Because for me, it usually is. But what does that look like for you guys?
Like in terms of how we feel about the idea,
or like when you start, like when that idea first pops in, like like for me, it's visual based usually. Like usually, my like 90% of my movies or any shorts, features, all of it, it starts with a shot that I think of, and with that shot comes a feeling, and from there that informs everything else, all the next steps that I take, whether or not I stick within that. Usually, there's like for the next movie that I'm thinking about possibly maybe making.
No promises.
Or writing. Like no problem. This is like just where my mind is at right now.
All right.
I have a shot of red light coming through a window. And that's where my head was at when I first got that idea. I mean, we kind of shared that idea, I think, actually, when it first came out. But like that, when we first started talking about it. But that's where my head was at for it.
Okay.
So that's where I start. And now from there, everything is extrapolating out from that one thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So my question, going back to it, do you have like, do either of you guys have like a specific thing that usually happens, or just, if not, what does that look like sometimes, or whatever you want to talk about? I don't know. If you don't have an answer, that's fine. I'm just curious.
It can differ for me. For La Danza specifically, it was purely, I mean, if you know, like, so La Danza is like an expanded version of the short film we made this year, which was called End of Consciousness. I didn't like the title, so I changed it. So, but just look on our channel, you'll find the short film. But that came about because we were doing a thing for Holly Hargraves, where she sent us a prompt and was like, make something, and we'll put it in a video.
Yeah.
And we were kind of putting our heads against the wall for a long time trying to figure out.
Hard time.
But then, I think I do. So, when I got the idea for it,
oh, the podcast is on the move.
I know, I don't know if you can hear me. When I got the idea for the movie, let's see if I still have it. Oh, please be in here. Okay, I don't know where it went. It's somewhere in my box. Anyways, when I got the idea for the movie, kind of like what you were saying, I was at work because we were doing quarantine online learning. So I had to be at work. Nobody was present, and I was just Zooming from my computer all day. So in the between, the sequence came into my head, and I just doodled it really quick. So similar to you, it's like, it wasn't necessarily a narrative, but it was like a sequence or a scene of events. Like I had the image of like this girl, this teenage high schooler in a car with this guy with this mask, and he like flicks, he snaps his fingers, and then she's flying all of a sudden. Like those ideas were in my head. I didn't have like a narrative to justify them, but like that kind of sequence, and I pictured all the music going over it and everything. So
then you just kind of fill in the blanks.
It's almost like a montage, what came together for that one specifically. That's not what usually happens, but that's how La Danza happens. Zach, how's it for you?
Sometimes it really varies, honestly, because like for each of the projects that I have done or plan to do at some point, it's been a variation of different things. Like for Coalescence, it was a shot, like you were describing, Ethan, which I won't spoil because I don't know if it will be in the movie or not. It'll depend on if we can pull it off in post.
Controversial. Will the shot that inspired it be in the movie or not?
Ooh, yeah.
But for my Western idea, which was the first movie that I pitched to these guys,
Pre-Wild Boys,
it will be made eventually.
One day.
That one was more of like, oh, there's the story. Like I came up with like the general outline of it. I was like, oh, okay, I could do this type of a thing. And then it kind of went from there. So it really varies, but usually, I don't really have one particular thing that I get, but usually it's like one, like specific, like, oh, like basically like, oh, road movie set in this time period, great. Or like, oh, here's a really cool visual, how would this turn into a story? And then I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I think part of it too for me is when it's kind of a bigger idea, it is more a sequence, a montage, or a moment will pop into my head and like, oh, what's that? Like, what is that about? And then I try to explore that.
Yeah.
That's with like bigger ideas, like La Danza. or just other movies that I want to make, but I know I won't unless I get a huge budget, that kind of thing. The more often than not, though, with kind of our level with low budget filmmaking, it comes from, what do I have? How can I use it? That makes sense. Like there's a couple of movies like it could even be like, I'm trying to think of an example without like spoiling a big idea, but like, we have a car, like an idea could come about, like we have a green car and we have another green car. What's a movie we can make with two green cars? And like, I'm in my head, I am like, just like going crazy over how do I make a good movie with two green cars? But then on top of that, what's a genre that I really want to make?
Yeah.
Who are people I have access to? What do I want the feel of this movie to be? What do I want the music to be? So a lot of it's almost like reverse engineering. Like
I go through that checklist too.
Like even like, so there's kind of two modes. There's like genuine inspiration, I think, and then there's the kind of no budget,
the constraint,
constraint limitations. Like, okay, I know I have to make a movie. What's that movie gonna be? What do I have access to? Like there's one like, what's it called? For the Oscar night, there was one movie we're gonna made called Glitch with the RC Boys. That one was purely, what's a movie we can make with two people in 3-4 hours?
Yeah,
let's do that. Also, on top of that was we wanted to make it genre, because we don't really want to do just people talking the whole time. We wanted like a genre sci-fi twist to it, and what's a style we can get away with. So that's also another way that a lot of movies are made, I feel, to an extent. Because Video Carnage was just like, oh my gosh, that'd be a fun idea for a movie. Oh wait, we can make that. Well, maybe that's a little bit different. I guess the idea came from that one. I guess if a good idea caters itself well to low budget filmmaking, we'll get an idea from that. But
yeah, sometimes it just fits well. Like Video Carnage, House, like those kind of movies, they just worked. Bell Rings, it took a lot of like, it's a big story, but what can we do to like, how do we rein it in? So, because it's only like 4 locations for the whole movie, 4 or 5. So yeah, it was just kind of, it just felt like different things, but yeah.
I thought of another one for one of my projects that is, we'll see if we can pull it off or not. We may need permission from the city to do so. You know which one I'm talking about. But
we don't need permission. Just do it.
We are permission.
But that one was inspired by the name. Was like, oh, here's the title. But like coming up with like, oh, here's a good title. And then like forming the story around it. Like, okay.
Title. People just listening, a track that's called Title just popped up on my screen as soon as Zach said the word title.
It's listening.
It's listening.
But yeah, lots of different ways to get inspiration and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or find it, rather.
It's kind of like a struggle I find these days a little bit in terms to like pursuing something. Because I used to be really good about pursuing every single idea. If I had an idea for a movie, I would just write it really quick. And I'd write it in a week. And be like, this is a crap draft, but it's here if I ever wanted to come back to it later. And I do that with a lot of movies. Nowadays, I'm a little more precious where I'm like, gee, I really like...
You got limited time.
It's like limited time, and it's like, I really want to be working on something that I can actually shoot. So that really inspires a lot of it. So I have a lot of kind of grandiose ideas that I would love to like, that I'm slowly like putting notes down, I'm slowly chipping away at, but it's just not a priority because I know I can't shoot it right away. So which is kind of a struggle, because I'll get on an idea and it's like, am I really inspired by this? Is this really something I want to pursue and actually make? Or am I just trying to fit this bigger idea into a box? Or am I trying to make this into that? And it's like, it's hard figuring out what your next movie will be, I think. I don't know about you guys, but it's difficult for me.
Yeah.
LaDonza was completely it was not planned whatsoever. I was going to make something else completely different. And I thought that was the thing I was going to make. Then we made the short film and it kind of was like, oh my gosh, what if this was a feature?
Yeah. And it just happened.
I'm really bad at planning my next movie though.
And that's why we make no promises until like production has begun.
Yeah.
Once production's started, that's like a 99% sure it's going to happen kind of thing for us.
Yeah.
Like once the camera's rolling, it takes something pretty big for it not to happen.
Yeah.
At least in our history. I'm sure there are reasons why I could, but we don't usually back down once we've started shooting.
Right. Once the cameras roll, it's like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Even something with House. Because House you started rolling cameras on 2 different projects, but...
They all fed into what became House.
They fed into House.
So, while that footage isn't out there, it's like, it almost was it was almost directly an Island-inspired movie, Joel Haver's Island. Like, I have paper bag puppets made of characters that would have been in the movie. Like, fully made. Like, I still have them. This didn't happen. I was so proud of myself. I made, to give them expression, I made eyebrows with magnets that sat in the paper bag. Cool. So you could change the eyebrows, so you could put emotion into the characters.
Nice.
It's never happened.
Well, same thing with your Western movie. That we couldn't make that happen. So we're like, well, we have this time, we have this energy, we have these resources. How do we turn it to something else? Then Wild Boys came out. Yeah. Wild Boys is a staple in our filmography. Yeah. Like, that's a whole series we've been doing now.
Yeah.
And it was totally unplanned.
Yeah.
We did not go into the summer thinking, let's make a comedy about
the boys,
Bigfoot explorers or whatever. So,
although we always fight to bring back that style of character,
we make a lot of movies, but we're terrible at playing. We're picking which one to actually pursue.
Oh yeah, I think, it's always an ever-changing list of. I had this idea, especially early. I feel like our early 2021 into like that 2021 is a year.
Right.
Had a lot of maybes.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, like I want to go back. I think it'd be fun to go back and relook at some of our old like meeting notes and see what was listed as like the features we are planning to do versus what actually came out.
Exactly.
Because I feel like that's pretty vast. I want to see like the percentage, how many ideas do we have versus how many got made, and like what's the leftovers from that pile.
Yeah.
I don't know. This would be interesting.
It's, I would love to be able to orchestrate my whole filmography to like have some kind of like different phases or like things like that. But
what were your focuses?
Yeah, but now I'm like, I just want to know what I should like. I couldn't plan that if I tried, because all our movies have been. Well, I feel like actually House and Bell Rings, I feel like, are pretty similar.
They're like I always knew they were going to be similar. Like I knew they were like spiritual siblings,
right?
Even though they're like vast, I always knew like, okay, House is dark. I want Bell Rings to be really bright. Right. So like, a lot of that light, like set during the day, even the nightmares are day set for the most part. But there are some totally pitch black scenes, so that they kind of harken back to House and that feel. And some of them are shot in the same place.
But Zach and I were like, well, you made Wild Boys, and then all of a sudden Coalescence, which is like a completely different movie.
180, yeah.
Well, same thing, and like I think my last thing was Video Carnage, I think. And now I'm
Video
doing
Carnage, a purely yours.
Purely mine.
Yeah.
And now it's Two Little Ghosts, which is like, what?
But October kind of bridges that gap,
I guess October, but I don't know. I feel like I have a very messy filmography, but I don't think it's that. I don't care that much, but
no,
it's I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, I guess.
Which is a fun way to do it.
I guess, yeah. But it would suck to like make a movie. Actually, this has that where you're like that's a smudge in my filmography.
I can't think of any movies you have in your filmography that you feel that way about.
Yeah, I do feel that way about the movie I've made. But
well, I feel what's nice though is we've like with all the shorts we've made. Like I have shorts that I'm like, oh God, why did I make that? Why did I do that? Like, and I feel like that dampens the blow on the features feeling that way.
That's true. Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I've made shorts that I don't like, and they're still available. And it's like, all right, it's there. I just pretend it doesn't exist. And I move on.
Yeah, I look at shorts now as like, oh, that's just practice. That's just whatever.
Yeah, it's sketches and scribbles versus like the final drawing.
Exactly. Although, I don't know. What do you think is best short? If you had to include a short film of yours,
of mine,
like if you had to like consider like if you're gonna watch no other short film, just watch this one.
What have we even made? Gosh,
I don't know. I can't
remember. Like I can think about so many of like the ones that we've made collectively. I'm talking now just to stall while I pull up playlists here.
Zach, what you made? You made a documentary short in film school. What else? Did you make anything else?
I did some other very short shorts. I did procrastination short. That
I made a
was fun.
procrastination short film like years ago. That's so
Was it
funny.
about a monk in the woods?
No, mine was not at all like that.
Shout
Polar
out to my
opposite.
roommate Peter for staying up past his bedtime to be a monk in my procrastination short.
That's beautiful. If you out of those shorts, is there any one of them that you would like want to be considered an integral part of your filmography, or do you feel like they're just practicing, like you're just warming up?
A lot of them I'd like to be considered practice. There is one that I made at the very end of the year with my RA that was kind of like based in reality, since he's going on a gap term this year, or a gap year this year, and so we did, it was kind of based off of like, oh, he's kind of reminiscing as he's packing up to leave campus and stuff like that. So I had it like he's packing up and stuff like that, and then he is like going through his phone, and then he pulls up a picture of the boys, and then he's like looking at it, and he's kind of like reminiscing, kind of a bittersweet kind of moment before he packs up and heads out.
So that's one where you're like, okay, I'd love.
I'm like, that one was simple and easy, and I'm really happy with that one.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm happy with how all of them came out, not in regards to like, oh, this is exactly how I expected it to be,
Right.
but like from what I learned from making them. Because like, I mean, the diabetes documentary is a fun one, which sounds weird.
Wild Boys
that
is
was
kind
like
of a
my
documentary.
that was kind of my big project for that class in college. That was that short. There was that procrastination one. That one was also fun.
Yeah.
There was a snowball fight that was literally like 5 shots. But that one was fun. That was like my first project of the term. But that one was pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's like each of these, I'm just getting to experiment with like short form stuff.
Yeah.
Really helps with a lot of stuff. So don't feel like this is for the audience. Don't feel like just because we're making a bunch of feature films that you need to go out and make a bunch of feature films. Do what you feel comfortable with, and don't worry about it not like, since this podcast is about inspiration and stuff like that. And I would say run with your inspiration and do what you can. But if it doesn't line up exactly with what you were inspired by or what you expected it to be, don't necessarily get down about it, because there's still a lot you gained from working on that.
Right.
And it can still be appreciated even if it's not necessarily something that you like per se, to be like, oh yeah, I made that type of a thing, but be like, I worked on that I learned something from that helped me out. I'm getting places.
Yeah, I think that's important to notice. One is, any failure you have on a film is not a failure, because you're going to learn something from it.
Exactly.
And you're going to do better on the next film you make. And also, you can start doing features, but don't worry about doing a feature. I mean, I think the people who know us know this, but the mentality for years when I was in film school, and just for a long time, is you as a filmmaker cannot make a feature. You need a big budget, you need permission, you need a lot of resources to do that. Instead, spend all your time making a bunch of short films, and that way you'll get the chance to make a feature. So
You'll maybe get the chance to make a feature.
You'll maybe get a chance to make a feature, which is preposterous that people believe that's the only way to get to make a feature. So where we're coming from is we've made shorts for 8 years, 7 years, 9 years. We made shorts for a long time. And we were like, you know what? Joel Haver proved to us that we could make a feature. We didn't have to wait. So let's start making features for YouTube, and all that. So that's where we're coming from. We're not trying to shame short films in any way.
No,
for
absolutely
us,
not.
when we're looking at our filmography, making a short film used to be a huge hurdle for us. Now it's just like, oh yeah, it's just a short film, because we've made so many features now.
And so many short films.
And so I would say, to answer the original question, I think in a weird way, both Doom on the Doorstep and La Danza, the short film La Danza, I think those are two films that I'm very those are I really enjoy those movies.
Yeah.
Like I feel proud to have those a part of my filmography rather than just like, oh, that was just practice or I was just warming up and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think for me, it's got to be something like Our Mr. President, even though it's never done. Because I think I learned so much about myself as a filmmaker and kind of what things, like where my limits were.
right.
And I think what was great was we had like 3 goes at that movie.
Right.
It'll come out one day.
One day.
One day.
Maybe.
And then like maybe The Briefcase, even though it's a movie I don't necessarily love.
Uh-huh.
So maybe it doesn't count actually.
Yeah, one that you're like, I made that. I'm proud to have that a part of my filmography.
You know, a
in
weird
terms
one
of
that I
short.
think is fun that I'm proud to have is Mr. Fiddle 3.
That's a great one.
I
That's
love
a
that
fun
movie.
one.
It's absolute crackhead energy, but
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun looking back at those.
In terms of our type of humor, our Mr. Fiddles 4 and 3 are good
Those are
ones to look at.
fun movies.
They're not necessarily like we don't make a lot of comedy. Well, we make Wild Boys, but we don't make as many comedies as we used to.
Yeah.
But in terms of like our type of humor, those are good.
That's
examples.
like the gang in that, and then now we have the boys
Yeah.
in Wild Boys. It's like you can kind of trace some recurring themes that we have
Right.
that we keep going back to.
Right.
Yeah, it's just part of who we are.
Yeah.
Can't avoid it.
I guess so. Anyways, I think that's a good place to move into our final segment.
Yeah,
What are you working on? What are you watching?
yeah.
I laugh because we've just recorded another podcast. So
It's the same thing.
same thing. Well, okay, what is
Even though this
something
is the
you're
one they hear
excited?
first.
What is be specific here?
Okay.
Specific, what is something you can't wait to start working on? And I'll give you an example. But for me, I cannot wait to do the next shooting day of La Danza so I can start editing because I've edited everything that I have and I've done all the VFX I can. So now it's just like, oh, I need more. I can't wait to get more footage for that so I can edit. So that's my thing.
Yeah.
What about you two?
I can't wait to stick a flagpole in the story idea that I'm going to start writing next.
Yeah.
Because I have a few that I'm like sifting between. So
Right.
now it's like, all right, what's the avenue I'm going to dedicate the next month to 2 months minimum on? Because I want to walk away with at least a finished first draft.
Right.
Even if I decide I'm not going to do it, having that first draft, I think is what I want to leave with. Mm-hmm. And then from there, if I want to switch, I'll do the same process until I come away with a finished, polished draft.
Right.
And then that'll be what I shoot at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know what that'll be yet, so picking that.
Zach.
I'm just looking forward to being done with Colas.
Being done. Yeah, I think everybody can relate.
That's a man.
That's a filmmaker.
That's it.
It's been a very fun project. It's also been a very challenging project. I'm just looking forward to being done filming it, and then I can just relax for a little bit.
The
then
before and
start-
after pictures of filmmakers of like before shooting, after shooting. Yeah.
It's a different, yeah.
I'm gonna once I'm done filming, I need to give myself some sort of reward or something. I don't know what I'll do, but
Go see a Star Wars.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
one that's probably far-ish out in the future. I'm looking forward to eventually getting to work on that Western movie that I pitched.
Yeah.
That one will be fun,
Yeah.
but we'll see when that one happens. And then the next project that I have in mind will be interesting just because of the way I have it kind of laid out shooting-wise in my mind, at least, going into it with a very small outline and not necessarily sure how it's going to be compiled.
Right.
Just the way I have in mind of shooting it is oh, this is very unconventional. This could be a really chill project that honestly, if I wanted to, I could film it over the course of 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, in our other podcast, which people will listen to soon, I think they'll
It'll
hear
be the
about.
one after this, probably.
They'll hear what we've actually been working on, or what we're watching. I asked the segment, what are you watching? But pick one thing, whether it be an episode or movie or something. Talk about, just highlight one thing, I guess, because we kind of talked all over the place
Yeah.
last time.
So just one thing we liked. a specific aspect.
Just
or
pick
scene
one.
we
Yeah,
liked.
like because I know we've talked about shows, but like what's an episode from that show, or what's like something that I don't know, like a scene from a movie that you saw or something that you were like, I want to highlight this because of, and it could be any reason. It could be like I love this, or it could be like, oh, I learned about this, or I don't know.
I hate this. No. I watched Over the Garden Wall again recently, yesterday. And my favorite episode is episode 2 because of the pumpkins in Pottsfield.
Yeah.
And I just enjoy that episode. It's my favorite episode of the show.
It's because you played Pumpkin in October, isn't it?
It might be. No, I like specifically.
No, it's a good fall.
Well, and then Enoch, the monster of October, is in it. We
Yeah.
just directly stole that. But I just love the bit where they're in court getting like accused of like, because they stepped on pumpkins.
Yeah.
And it's like, I convict you of this, and murder. Murder? Oh, no, not murder.
But those other things, I
things.
sentence you to few hours of manual labor.
That joke just is my favorite thing in the whole show.
Yeah.
I think it's so good. I just like that episode. Good vibes.
It's a good one. Zach, what's one episode or thing you've seen?
I just remember one that I didn't mention in the other podcast.
Perfect. Ooh, even better.
For National Cinema Day, which was on the 3rd, I went to the theater with my family and actually ran into a bunch of other people that I know doing the exact same thing. But I went and saw Top Gun Maverick in IMAX.
Nice.
I'd already seen it a couple times, but this was the first time in IMAX, and that was an absolute blast.
I could have saw it last night at a drive-in theater, and I chose not to go.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah.
Not feeling it.
But that movie has, I didn't know what to expect going into it the first time I saw it, but every time I've seen it has like really restored my faith in
Scientology.
Oh no. No, the just filmmaking in general, just getting to see someone just pushing the limits of cinema.
Is that
and,
Christopher McQuarrie, the director?
He's not the director. No, that's Joseph Kosinski.
Okay.
He's the director. Christopher McQuarrie did work on it though, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Which is cool. But just like every aspect of that movie is like blows my mind, and just sitting in the theater even after like knowing everything that's going on in it and just sitting down and like experiencing it, it's a very powerful movie for me, and I don't know why, but I started crying like 3 minutes in, and I was like, oh man, and then I was like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
But it's just like, well, just getting to see like the passion and like all the work gets demonstrated on screen. And I mean, that's the case for every movie, but like particularly with this one, given like how uniquely they shot it, like using actual airplanes and stuff like that and shooting inside it, like training each of the actors.
Shooting real people.
Oh gosh.
Zach's like, yes. No one has the bravery to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But like getting to see that and having like excellent action and an excellent story, you don't get that very often anymore. Just that kind of quality of product in like mainstream like blockbuster TV, and that one has really been really cool to see. And unless Black Panther 2 blows my mind this year, or Avatar 2 blows my mind this year, that's probably my favorite movie of the year.
Nice.
So Bell Rings isn't your favorite. Noted. We're no longer friends.
Speaking of Tom Cruise, and harkening back to my weird thing with movies, I've been rewatching Legend every single night.
Oh yeah, you were talking about
That's
that.
been my little thing now, my obsession.
That's your hyperfixation.
Hyperfixation, yeah. I just good vibes, just good like. I can't explain the fixation on movies I get, where it's just like nothing else really interests me. I just kind of want to watch that, but I don't really want to watch it, but I need to. Like it's this weird like compulsion that I had with like The Lighthouse. I had it with Oh, what was the horror? I had it with a horror movie before Legend. I can't remember though. It was like an old horror movie. Oh shoot, I can't. It was like a made-for-TV movie too. I can't remember what it was, but I had like a fixation with this horror movie. It was like it just needs to be on right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something mental, because I got some things like that. I got some issues. I think that was a cut line from one of our Wild Boys movies. I have issues or something. No, if anyone knows anything about mental things, what is that? Like, I need to watch it every night. It doesn't feel weak. Here. Let me explain to you the symptoms.
Called coping.
No. Let me explain to you the symptoms. Actually, this will be a good way to wrap up. Okay. I don't feel like I can go to bed unless it's on.
Okay.
Like unless I'm
you
watching it.
You fall asleep to it. Sometimes.
Not necessarily. Like it's got to be the last thing I do.
Okay.
I don't have to fall asleep, but like whether it be I'm just tired where I just turn it off, or I like fall asleep and then I wake up again. Then I'll turn it off. I don't necessarily have to fall asleep watching it, but it's just got to be the last thing I do.
Okay.
Or else the day feels weird. Sleeping feels weird.
Interesting.
While I'm in this fixated state, I don't feel like watching any other movie.
Okay.
So like, maybe I'll watch a little bit of TV, but I'm not actually super duper invested, or I'm like kind of half paying attention. And like the idea of watching another movie is just like, I tried watching Blade Runner the other day, and
the OG one? Or?
The OG, yeah. Because I'm like, well, it's Ridley Scott. It's the same director. It's the movie he made like before it. This will scratch that itch, right? I couldn't. I had to turn it off after like 3 minutes because I'm like, it's not Legend. It's not the same thing. What else? So I like can't watch anything else. I also am listening to the soundtrack all the time, but that seems pretty normal, I think.
If you're doing a deep dive, I feel like that's like a logical step. I've listened to the Lighthouse soundtrack a billion times.
I've like
That's me with Dark Phoenix.
I've like researched everything about the movie.
Okay.
That seemed, but like more than I usually like, because normally I'll watch a movie and then like scroll through Wikipedia and that's it. But this is like I'm scouring the internet for like why Tom Cruise hasn't spoken about it and like his quotes. Like I got weird knowledge on this movie, and this has been happening.
And this isn't the only movie this has happened to.
No, it goes through waves. Like like the Lighthouse.
Is it like monthly, or is it just?
I can't ever predict it because here's what
started.
Do
you go through times where there is no movie you obsess over?
Sometimes.
Okay, so.
But
so it usually goes from one to the next.
Not quick. There can be a lull in between. But I watched, because I think I told you, I talked about it on our podcast a while before we went on our break.
Yeah.
I watched the two versions of it like back to back because I was like, oh, I haven't seen this movie in a long time. I'd love to compare director's cut and the theatrical cut. And then I just couldn't stop thinking about it. But I didn't watch it. It was after, I think, our Yakima trip, or maybe slightly before, where I was just like...
It was a little before.
It's probably before. Whenever you saw it on there.
Because I remember seeing it there before.
Well, I brought it out to watch the two versions, and then it just never... I guess it was probably... So I guess this whole summer.
Do we need to, like, call someone?
If you touch that DVD, I'll kill you.
My diagnosis is you are a ritual movie watcher.
But I don't like watching... Like, okay, the idea... I didn't go to National Cinema Day, because I was...
either.
Because I was like, oh, I don't really want to watch anything. I even tried looking into, like, I could watch similar movies. Neverending Story, Labyrinth, Willow, all of those movies, Excalibur even. Like, I'm like, no, it's because it's not. It's so close, but it's not the thing.
I had a talk with Sarah a couple nights ago. Like, we were just, like, laying down. We just watched something, and we were just, like, chilling.
Uh-huh.
And I just turned around, I was like, this has like been on my chest. And I was like, I don't enjoy watching movies.
Right. Okay. Yes.
I don't enjoy watching movies.
Yeah.
Like it is like it feels the same as me telling like when I was going to the gym a lot. It felt the same.
Right.
Where I was like, I have to go work out now.
Right.
But it's like I have to go watch this thing that I should like. I feel like I should want to do it.
Right.
And I can't bring myself to do it.
And I feel the same. Like the other day, I was like, okay, I have the evening, like I'm done with everything, I'm gonna chillax, watch a movie. I spent 30 minutes trying to decide something to watch. I couldn't. I was like, it's gotta be Legend. I gotta watch Legend.
See, I don't even have...
I've seen this movie 50 times. Like more. Like I can't explain it. And I get that way with so many... You were there for Justice League.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we both experienced that for Justice League.
That was a different thing. That was a different time. But Justice League straight up was the lighting for scenes of video carnage. Like,
Yeah.
that Justice League was on the TV so much. You see lighting move in some scenes of Jordan. It's because it's Justice League on the TV.
Right.
Like, that was a different thing.
Right.
But there's certain movies that I want, like, when we, after coming back from Yakima, we had our conversation about The Green Knight.
Right.
And I'm like, that's all I can think about is wanting to watch it. I don't own a Blu-ray player. I don't own a copy of The Green Knight. But I'm like, that's the itch I have right now. But I know once I have it, I'm not going to care about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know that there's movies I want to watch, but once I have access to them, it's like, I can't. Like, I lose the drive.
I remember I got this way with Coraline, the Leica movie.
Yeah.
I remember a period where I was watching that every single night. And it was just on or whatever.
With shows I have an easier time with for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about shows that it's different.
That's why it's easier for me to watch shows, because it's like I can jump in and jump out really easy because it's really short.
Yeah.
But with the movie, it's like I can't watch like Daredevil because it's not Legend. That's very specific. Like, I can't watch this because it's not Legend. Like, that's how I've been feeling for the past, like, this whole summer, I guess. And I get this way with movies. I don't know what it is. And it doesn't happen, like you said, it doesn't happen like after Legend I switch over to movie. It's like after Legend eventually it'll end. I'll get weaned off of it,
Yeah.
But then it'll happen to another movie. And I can never predict. If you touch it, I'll kill you.
I'm sitting right next to it for the listeners.
Like, I've gone online, I've looked for all the Legend merchandise. Like, I never buy it because I don't have money. But I'm like,
but if you could, you would.
I'm like, I want to know if there are Burger King cups or whatever.
Are there Happy Meal toys for Legend?
Like, you know how Jordan from Wild Boys?
Yeah.
Like, he got fixated with the
pickle.
Well, like, yes. And the other, like...
the audience doesn't know about that yet, but you'll get to know soon enough. Don't worry.
Like, I get fixated with
Hawaii.
I feel like he's very obsessive in those movies.
I mean, I think all of our characters are to some degree.
That's true.
Zach the least so, but still.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when I was really obsessed with the George Reeves Superman movie, like Superman and the Mole Men, and that was just on every single day.
Okay, I have another question.
Sorry everybody, listen, this has just turned into a therapy session.
No, and now I have more questions that I want,
Yes.
and I think the people will want to know too. So, with Legend, can I touch it?
You can touch it. The Blu-ray's safe in the Blu-ray player. No.
With Legend,
Yes.
when you watch this, does your knowledge and inspiration from watching this movie, does that go anywhere? Like, do you think about, okay, this I'm watching, and what you absorb from watching this movie 100 times, is that going to go into a project, into some other outlet, or is this just, it lives in your brain until it diminishes and gets taken over by something else?
In the same way, like when I watched The Lighthouse, I think the movie that we were going to make at the time was Simon Follows.
Yes.
And I was thinking about, like, oh my gosh, like, this can fit into Simon Follows well. And it kind of does to an extent.
Yeah.
There's like a project, because I know I want to make a sci-fi fantasy.
Okay.
In the next few years. That's something that we're going to do, because we got gorgeous locations here in Oregon. That project has been, now that's not been the only inspiration, but I'm thinking a lot about that as I'm doing this other thing.
Okay. So there is...
But it's not like, I didn't start, it wasn't because of that.
Had you seen this movie before?
I'd seen that a few years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been...
So it wasn't new?
No, it's not a new thing. But again, it's not like the sci-fi thing is why I picked up to watch it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I know also we're going to do a horror movie in a few years at some point. Like, Legend isn't going into that horror movie. It just happened, it's, if that makes it, it will, but not immediately feed into the other stuff.
Got it. Dude, I don't know, man.
Someone in the comments tell me. Do I have a thing? I have other weird things, but I can talk about, but maybe another time.
I think back to the sleep tapes you made.
Right.
Do you still have those?
I do.
I've never
have
seen
we talked about the sleep tapes?
We've talked about it.
I have no clue what this is.
Terrified.
Like, what are you talking about?
Okay. The sleep tapes would be a great movie title, by the way.
So briefly, gosh, this is gonna be okay.
We're learning the weird stuff.
This is weird. Okay, we're getting weird. You gotta talk about my therapy session.
This is like the niche side of Doom Productions. If you're sticking in this long, you're like
when I was in college, I became obsessed with falling asleep to things. like on the TV.
Sounds insane.
This is around the
Go
time
on.
when I started really experimenting with VCR technology.
It just gets worse.
Oh Lord. I my whole life I didn't really fall asleep to stuff on the TV.
No.
When I was in college, when I was in college, I started like falling asleep to stuff on the TV by accident.
Yeah.
But I was like, there's a time where I would start falling asleep to movies and stuff a lot. Like I couldn't stay up. And I was like, well, what if what I did was because I'll start to watch something and then I will entirely forget the plot of the whole thing. Like I won't actually watch the movie. It'll be like I kind of fell asleep. I was like, I missed it. So I was like,
This is like your Dune experience.
What if yes, exactly. It was like my Dune experience. And I was like, okay, what if I made an edit of like, that was set like to music, of like, for lack of a better, like it was a mood. It was a vibe.
Yeah, like a vibe tape.
I mean, you've seen them.
Yeah, I've watched them. Like the ones you have of the double. I remember there's shots of the double. You made me watch that.
I didn't make you.
You gave it to me. I wanted to watch it. It was kind of like...
It's like a long, extended music video, but not a music video. Yeah. It was a bunch of clips set to music that had the same vibe.
Like, you did more than just, like, compiling clips.
Right.
Like, you edited these.
Like, yeah.
This reminds me of the thing that they have on Disney Plus with, like, the Star Wars stuff. That's, like, they have,
Visions?
like... No. They have a series of, like, like a compilation of shots and noises.
Biomes.
Yeah.
This is not that at all.
Oh, okay.
This is... like,
it's a whole other level.
I'm also, like, I'm isolating dialogue and putting that in. Like, I'm crafting, like, a weird-ass trailer that's, like, 20 minutes long, and then once that mood, that vibe is done, it switches over to like another thing.
Yeah, for like another 20 minutes.
And so I would know when I would skim through, I'd put like the title, like Sleep Tape Volume 1, or Sleep like 1 or 2.
I'm like masking taped on these VHSs. Like,
and so if you skim through it, it would say like Sleep Tape, and then it would play through the thing, and then the title would come again. And that way I would know that the next vibe was up or whatever.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so that's what they were. And so what I would do is I would edit these tapes, and every night I would put them in the VCR, and I would play it, and I would play those to fall asleep to. Because with the VCR, it turns itself off. It like gets to the end, rewinds, turns itself off, and the TV shuts off by itself. Mm-hmm. Or at least my old TV did with the VCR. And so that was something I did for months. I can't remember how long.
You didn't even show them to me at first. I just knew they existed. I'd seen them.
Yeah.
It took a while before I got to actually watch them.
Right.
It was like this dark secret. I was like, what am I going to see on these tapes?
No, I just called sleep tapes because it's like I just put them in before I go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like the groundworks of Video Carnage looking back on it.
Really, it kind of actually was, in a weird way. But
only one or two
my obsession,
footage.
I think that might have scratched that itch of that obsession then, but I did have like Coraline was before that.
Yeah.
Like being obsessed with that over and over again. I had other obsessions prior to that. Maybe that scratched some itch, but it wasn't like felt more productive because I was making stuff, but I don't know. Anyways, this is the weirdest ending to any of our pod. This has to be the weirdest like left turn in terms of like no topic. You're just up here.
Whoever listens to those, they're getting a treat.
Yeah, if you listen this far, I don't care if you listen to any of our other podcasts. I just want people's opinions on this that I do. I want to know.
Please, if you listen this far, you are required to comment.
Someone diagnose me, please.
You have to comment about this.
Because I can't stop watching Legend. And once Legend's gone, it'll happen to another movie.
Will you go back to Legend at some point? Like, okay.
Yeah, because I'll go back to these movies. Like, I love Coraline. I can go back to it. Yeah. Like, this
doesn't like ruin it for you.
This doesn't happen with movies I don't like. Like, I have to at the base level, I have to enjoy it to some extent.
Yeah.
This happened with Ghost Rider, the Nick Cage movie. Now I have to go back and I have to think about all the movies that this has happened to. Because I actually do. I love Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider's a great movie.
But that's such a funny one.
I love that movie. It's like, so good.
It's like the kid who's like the mom whose Netflix account she had her kid watch the Bee Movie because the kids were obsessed with the Bee Movie. They would watch it every day. And Netflix was like, there's this one customer who's seen it like 1 billion times.
Yeah.
That's literally me with these obsessions.
Could you watch Ghost Rider 2? Or did it have to be the first one?
I didn't have the first Ghost Rider.
Oh, so it was the
So it
second
was
one?
only the second one.
No, or, I'm sorry, I didn't have the second one, so it was the first one.
Okay.
Got it.
But the second one is great. I gotta watch that.
The second one is very cool.
Cool cinematography. Though.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
I'm trying to think of what else. It's happened a lot. Someone diagnose me, please.
Jordan has a look in his eye I haven't seen in a long time.
No, and I realized this was like literally like 2 days ago, where I was like, I think I have a thing with like I fixate on movies, like one movie.
Yeah.
Like that happens to me a lot.
After like the 100th time he's watching Legend, he's like,
And like
I have a problem.
and like the billionth movie this has happened to. This happened with Ferris Bueller's Day Off at one point. This happened with
like the veil has lifted.
no, and now I'm like, it's like, oh my gosh, I think I have a thing there.
I think I have a problem.
Dracula. This happened with the Spanish version of Dracula.
I remember
from
you talking
1930.
about that. Remember I want to see that version.
It's great. It's good.
Do you have a copy of it? Or do you watch it somewhere?
What was it?
Do you have a copy of the Spanish version of Dracula? Or do you watch that like online?
I think you can watch it online.
Got it.
I think it's free.
Yeah, you can. I think
Yeah.
the whole thing's on YouTube. I think.
Yeah.
In decent quality?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, cool. When I watched Primer on YouTube, it was like 240p, and that was rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also had COVID, so that made it extra hard.
That's true. That'll make things difficult.
Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Doom Productions podcast.
I have questions.
I think we're going to end it here before Jordan spirals any further.
Yeah.
If you could be so kind, though, leave Jordan a comment. Talk about your obsessions with
Dude, I
movies.
was doing the wrap up and everything. I already said all this like 20 minutes ago.
Diagnose Jordan. Hit that subscribe button. It'll make Jordan feel a little better. Thank you guys so much for listening.
If anyone has a VHS copy of Legend, I'm interested in purchasing it. I'll just throw that out there.
And we'll see you in the next episode.